Hello, class. Welcome to this first week, and I'm proud to be your guide for this course in C# software development. Uh, as you know, you may either download the tools and set up a development environment on your own Windows machine, or you may use the virtual desktop infrastructure or VDI provided by SNHU. I work on a Mac notebook computer for all of my teaching activities so that I can always have it with me. Therefore, I will be using the VDI for myself during this course. Now, there are instructions for accessing the VDI posted in the course materials, but sometimes it simplifies things if you can see someone do it in a video. So I'm going to access the VDI. Now it says in the instructions, recommends that you click on the ellipsis here and launch from client. That never seems to actually materialize. So I'm just going to, after I do that, I typically go down here to Virtual Apps, find Student Lab 2 again, and launch it from there. That lets me in. Now, it's not asking me to authenticate this time because I've been in and out of this several times this morning. And I'm not going to go full screen. But when you do authenticate, your username for the VDI is simply the first part of your SNHU email address without the @snhu.edu. So, for example, my SNHU email address is s.satterfield@snhu.edu. My username for the VDI, therefore, is s.satterfield. Now, your password is going to be the same for the VDI as it is for just authenticating into SNHU email and Brightspace and such. So it's the same password. Give this a moment to come up. Now, when this comes up, I'm simply going to follow the instructions in Chapter 1 of your textbook and create a console application from the command prompt using only Notepad as a text editor. Then I'm going to move into the next exercise, which asks you to use the, still working in the command prompt, but use the .NET command line interface, or CLI, to create a project. So we're going to end up with two projects that do exactly the same thing, but one of them will have been created manually by you. The other one will have been created automatically by the command line interface. And then we will take a look at the similarities and differences. Now, your book asks you to use the command prompt for this exercise so that you'll gain a baseline understanding of what's going on when the Integrated Development Environment, or IDE, automates some of this work for you when you start using it. So let's open up the command prompt. Now we're going to navigate to the Documents folder under my personal folder here. We're on the C drive, Users folder, and then my personal folder. You should also have one once you authenticate into the VDI. You too will have a personal folder under Users. Let's see what we have in here. We only have you have the Documents folder, desktop, and such. So let's go into Documents, CD for change directory. CD Documents, let's see what we have in there. We have nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and create a folder, a new folder for exercise 1. Make directory. And I'm going to call it Hello World 1. And then I'm going to navigate into it. And then I'm going to open up Notepad. I'm going to type in a single line of code. System is the library. Console is the class. Right line is the method. Hello world, that is the classic first line of code written in any new language one is learning for most people. So we're going to save that in the same folder we just created, so we're going to have to find it. And here we are. Now we need to change the save as type to all files. And we're going to call it program.cs. Now we're going to go File, New in Notepad and make a new file into which we're going to type the commands necessary to create a project. And I'm going to go ahead and close these tags as I'm working. Now I'm using the space bar to indent rather than the tab key. That's up to you, but indentation is very important, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Project. Then we have a property group. Now inside the property group, we're just going to have two properties. One is telling the compiler the output type, what sort of file to make out of this when it compiles the code. And it's going to make an executable file. Target framework tells the project file what version specifically of .NET to target. Okay, so let's check very quickly for syntax errors. It looks good. And we're going to save that in the same folder. And we're going to save it as hello.csproj. Okay, now we're going to do issue a command here, .NET run, and that's going to compile and run our code. Now, if it had already been compiled and you hadn't changed anything in the source code since it was compiled, it would simply run the code, and we'll see that in a second. When it finishes, we will issue the command again, .NET run, and then we won't see any of this compilation output. So here at the bottom, finally we saw the results of the code running. So let's run it again. And now we should simply see Hello World. Now, I promised I was going to talk about indentation before we go on. So please be aware as you write your code that indentation is very important to make the code readable and thus maintainable. Uh, for languages such as C Sharp, the indentation does not count as a syntax error with the compiler. If your indentation is off and your code isn't quite as readable as it should be, the C Sharp compiler is not going to pick that up. Now, Python, on the other hand, your indentation has to be perfect or it won't compile. So just be aware, though, that regardless of what programming language you're using and whether or not indentation is syntactically incorrect if it's not right, um, it's very important because the lifespan of most successful software applications is such that about 70% of the time spent by a developer interacting with the code and maintaining it is post release. It's after the original developer has written the code, or even the original development team. It may have been written by multiple people. Then it goes out, people start using it. Those developers move on to another project. Whoever the customer is may have their own team of people to maintain the code. Regardless, it's seldom, the maintenance of the code seldom gets done by the original developer. And in fact, seldom even by the same individual twice. So lots of different people over the lifespan of this code, they are going to be trying to read your code, and so your code has to be readable and the logic has to be easy to follow. Otherwise, you put the developers who are maintaining the code at risk of actually introducing errors as they attempt to understand your code, and maybe they don't quite understand it, so they go in to add a new feature, fix a bug, and end up introducing bugs. And so this ultimately comes back to tarnish the reputation of the individual developer or the development team. So readability is important, and proper indentation is key to readability. So now that we've done that one, we're going to move into task 2. So now we have Hello World 1. It compiles and runs. So let's back out of that folder and create a new one called Hello World 2. And then we'll navigate into that folder. Okay, now this one's going to go a lot easier because we're not going to have to code this ourselves. We're going to use the CLI, command line interface, and we're going to issue a command, .NET new console. Now that's actually an instruction to the .NET CLI to create a new project of type console application. Note that we're not providing an argument for the name of the application, so it's going to pick up the name of the folder that you're in at the time you create the project, and that's going to be the name of the project file, and you'll see that. So we're going to type .NET new console with no other arguments. And so what you're going to see when this finishes is that we have a project file with the same name as our folder, Hello World 2. And there it is, Hello World 2 CS Proj. And let's run that. So we should see exactly the same output we saw um, from the one. And there it is, hello world. Exactly the same output as we saw in the one we created manually. So let's take a look at this one. We know what the one we created manually looks like. So let's take a look at this one. Okay, let's look at the project file first. Um, it looks identical except for some white space here and here, and the note that the the instructions in the book told us to target .NET 6 in the one we created manually. Now the CLI um, targeted .NET 7. That's one of the first things to note. Now, there's no clear mandate to target one or the other for your work in this course. At least I haven't seen it yet, and that that is subject to change. Um, but I tend to start any entirely new project with the latest and greatest stable release. Now, both .NET 6 and 7 are stable releases. .NET 6 is what is known as a long-term support LTS release, maintenance updates as needed on Patch Tuesdays for up to 3 years. .NET 7, on the other hand, is a short-term support release, STS, with maintenance updates on Patch Tuesday for up to 18 months. Um, so the difference is, so they're both of the same quality. Neither one's a beta version or anything like that. But um, .NET 7 is touted as being more scalable and having better performance. So that would be my target. But as of now, the choice is yours. So let's close that one. Now let's take a look at the program file. Okay, now the only difference here, other than the comment, is that, well, there's a comma in the output, and the book may have asked us to do that, and I just missed it. But I didn't put a comma in. But that's just not really a difference in the coding. Uh, the only difference in the code I see is that it doesn't explicitly reference the system library. Now, the system library is a very fundamental library that's in any instance of .NET framework that any developer is going to be working with. We're all going to have the system library. Now, there are other libraries you could add on, and those you must reference explicitly, or else you must have a using statement at the top of your file. Like you could, up here, you could put using system. I'm not going to save this because this was auto-generated. So you could have something like that. Or you could do what we did in the one we created manually, system.console. That's an explicit reference in the command. You can do either one of those, or obviously for the system library being so fundamental, you can do away with the, you can skip the explicit reference and the using. But for many of these, as I said, you will need to explicitly reference or have a using statement for that library. So it's probably a good idea just to go ahead and either do the using or the explicit reference for any library. So that's that. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that the VDI does not persist your work. If you log in and create some folders and some files, as we have done, and then you log out and you come back in even 5 minutes later, it's all gone. So what you need to do then is at the end of each session, go ahead and open up OneDrive from inside the VDI, and if necessary, authenticate into your SNHU OneDrive account, and then open up a file explorer here locally and find those folders and files we just created. Oh. And here they are. So as soon as OneDrive comes up, but yeah, OneDrive is very slow on the VDI. But the point is, you put it on OneDrive in your personal folder, and then the next time you come into your VDI, it's just open up OneDrive and you can find it, and you could bring it back down to your personal folder on the VDI if you wanted to, or you can access it. Now it's asking us to authenticate. You can access it on your desktop on your physical machine as well. So once it's on OneDrive, it's available to you anywhere. Okay, then I'm going to go to My Files, and I've created a folder called IT230, and actually I copied these in here before, but had I not done that, so I'm just going to copy these and then paste them. Well, it doesn't seem to want to let me paste them. Let me just drag them over here. Okay, so it brought them in. It just, since they had the same names as the others, it just made a one for these are the new ones. So, well, that's really all I wanted to show you in this video. Just, how to get in to the VDI, how to get around in it. Uh, just go through that first example with you, the first exercise, first couple of exercises. And that's it. I hope you enjoy the exercises. I hope you enjoy the class. You've got a great textbook and many other great resources in the course materials to guide you along. And I'll be uh, putting announcements and videos and other resources out there as we go along. So, best wishes for a successful term. I look forward to meeting you all this week.